Are you running out of games already, Nintendo? I'm Shadow Steve, and today I'm counting down my picks for my top 5 compilation games that should be available to play on Nintendo Switch Online. So for this list, I had to take a look on the apps for Nintendo Switch Online involving the N64, NES, Game Boy, GBA, Super Nintendo, and Sega Mega Drive games. However, there are other games that should be available to play on those apps for the Switch. Bear in mind, these are my only options for Nintendo to put more to, the Switch. And of course, when I say compilation, I mean there are other games that are yet to be ported to those apps. Hope you guys are ready for this. Let's begin the countdown. As we start with number 5, and that is every Mortal Kombat game. Okay, well, not every Mortal Kombat game. I'm gonna go for some old school Mortal Kombat games that are ported from the arcades. Like Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, and the Ultimate version. These are the games that should be available to play on Switch Online for both Super Nintendo and Mega Drive versions. And why is that? Well, despite that the Super Nintendo version wasn't that great, Mortal Kombat has better improvements for the Super Nintendo than the Mega Drive version. But the Mega Drive version has a cheat code, so we can activate the cheat code alongside Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. We should be playing those games as well. Oh yeah, I'm not quite sure if I should say Mortal Kombat 3 or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, but I wouldn't mind both versions for the Sega and Nintendo versions for Switch Online. So we want to play old school Mortal Kombat. And if you guys do play Mortal Kombat 1 on PS5, Xbox Series X, PC, and Switch, I would recommend playing some old school Mortal Kombat games. And seriously, talk to NetherRealm Studios Nintendo about bringing old school Mortal Kombat to Switch for us to play so we can perform some fatalities. Although, I don't think playing Mortal Kombat games on Switch while on the bus is a good idea. But seriously, we need some old school Mortal Kombat games. And number 4 is the Pokemon games from Pokemon Red and Green to Pokemon Emerald. So when I say Red and Green, I actually mean Red and Green because that was the game that came out in Japan in 1996. Then Blue came out in Japan, Red and Blue came out in North America and PAL countries, Yellow came out late in Japan, and then again in North America and PAL countries. So that's why I said Pokemon Red and Green. If Pokemon Stadium was released on Nintendo Switch Online for the N64, and 2 more Pokemon games were released on the N64 Online app, and of course Pokemon Trading Card Game is available to play for the Game Boy version of Nintendo Switch Online, why not those old school Japanese role-playing games? Like Pokemon Red and Blue for the Game Boy. Can we just play those, please, Game Freak? I mean, we can try trading and battling online or locally, like we did for the DS versions of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, all the way to the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games. And yeah, if we adore the remakes, can we just play the original games on Switch Online instead, Game Freak? Yes! In case I forget, I have to bring my Switch with me, so I won't have to worry about forgetting. Because at number 3 will be some Capcom games. And there are a certain amount of games that are released for Sega, like Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition and Ghosts and Goblins, but there are other games that are yet to be released for the Switch Online. As for the Nintendo version, it does have Mega Man games and Mega Man X games, but what about Street Fighter 2 games, both Super Nintendo and Mega Drive versions? What about, let's see, well, what about the Street Fighter Alpha games? Why can't we play those games too? And I'm not gonna lie, but shouldn't we play some other Capcom games that are not on Super Nintendo and Sega Mega Drive, such as, let's see, Marvel vs. Capcom games, from X-Men vs. Street Fighter to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, as well as Marvel Superheroes and X-Men Children of the Atom. Can we play, like, Darkstalkers, and what about the Resident Evil games for the N64? Can we play those games too? And of course, I know they're not on Nintendo and Sega. Can we play other Capcom games too, like Lost Planet and Dino Crisis Capcom? Come on, we want to play those games, Capcom. And number 2 is every Sega game. And by every Sega game, there are certain games that are released on Switch Online, like Shinobi and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic Spinball, but there are other games that are missing from the library. So where's Sonic 1? What about Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles? Can we play those games too, Sega and Nintendo? And of course, when I say every Sega game, I mean every Sega game on each console, like Alex Kidd and some Shinobi games on the Master System. What about Sonic Chaos or Triple Trouble for the Game Gear? And of course, how about some Saturn and Dreamcast games like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 and Space Channel 5 and 7D Amiga and Jet Set Radio? Where are the Sega games? Not just for Mega Drive, but other Sega games on Sega consoles too. And of course, I would love to see some Game Boy Advance games published by Sega, like Jet Set Radio Future, or if there is, and of course the Sonic Advance games. Can we play those too on Switch Online, Sega and Nintendo? And at number 1 is every Rare game. And when I say Rare, I mean Rare Limited. The British developer that worked on a bunch of amazing games like Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye and Donkey Kong Country. And those are the games that are released for Switch Online. The Donkey Kong Country trilogy for the Super Nintendo Switch Online app, Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye 007 for the N64 app. So what about other games? Where's RC Pro-Am? Where's Saberwolf? Well, Saberman actually. Where's Perfect Dark? No Conquer's Bad Fur Day? What about Donkey Kong 64 or Diddy Kong Racing? Or what about Killer Instinct? Look, I know Rare is owned by Microsoft, but why can't we play those games for Nintendo Switch Online? If we get to play Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye, and Donkey Kong Country games on Switch Online, why can't we play those games too? Nintendo, talk to Microsoft and have an agreement to play, well, to let us play old school Rare games on Switch Online. Otherwise, I'll have to stick with Rare Replay for Xbox. So what games would you like to play on Nintendo Switch Online? Let me know down in the comments below. If you've got nothing to say, and you made it this far, why not leave a controller emoji or a mushroom emoji cursor of Mario? You can give me a follow on social media to the links down in the description below. You can hit like, subscribe, ring the bell if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.